From the headquarters of Telestory English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Supporters of Brazilian President-elect Jair Bolsonaro have celebrated his victory with fireworks in Rio de Janeiro. As soon as the results were announced, thousands of people gathered outside his home to congratulate him. Waving flags, they cheered for Bolsonaro as they listened to his victory speech. The military also took to the streets to celebrate the win.
Now this country is going to move forward because of my captain, my president. He's not homophobic, he's a man of God, he's a man of character, he's not corrupt. He will fight for all Brazilians, because for him, there are no gays, lesbians, blacks or whites. We are a group, we are all united.
Let's listen to what Jair Bolsonaro had to say just after his win was confirmed.
What happened today in the polls was not the victory of a party, but the celebration of a country for the liberty. Our compromise that we make with Brazilians is to make a decent government, promoting the country and our people. And I'll guarantee that it is how it will go. Our government will be made by people who has the main proposition that is listening to me in that moment. The proposition of transformation Brazil in a big, free and prosperous nation. You can have the certainty that will work night and day for that. Liberty is a principle, a fundamental principle. Liberty of living and being in the streets in every space of the country. Liberty for being defended. Political and religious liberty, liberty to have an opinion, liberty to make options and be respected for them. This is a country for all of us, Brazilians from born here or from heart. Different positions. As defendant of liberty, I'll guide a government that represents and defends the liberties of the citizens and to defend the laws. They are for all, because like that will be our government, constitutional and democratic. I believe in the capacity of the Brazilian people who works in an honest way, that together we can, government, society, construct a better government. That future that I talk and that I believe is for a government that makes conditions so everybody can grow. And it means that the federal government will give a step back, reducing its structure and bureaucracy, cutting this privileges so people can make steps into the front. Our government will break paradigms, we will have confidence in people, we will permit that citizens, those who are entrepreneurs, have more possibilities to construct a new future.
Bolsonaro has been elected as president with 55.7% of the votes. This according to the country's Supreme Electoral Court, with 99% of the votes counted. Fernando Haddad of the Workers' Party has lost with 44% of the vote. Workers' Party presidential candidate Fernando Haddad had conceded defeat in a speech to supporters in São Paulo, following the victory of Jair Bolsonaro. He spoke about the huge task ahead, saying that he and his party will work in the name of democracy and freedom.
We follow with high heads, we follow with determination, we follow with courage to take our message to the five corners of the country, to the countryside and the city, in the peripheries and in the center, to the students, the old people, the LGBT community, the grandparents, women, whites and blacks, Catholics and evangelicals, those who belong to African and indigenous religions, to atheists, to all Brazilians. We, in a certain way, will carry the message that is worth taking, and national sovereignty and democracy as we understand it is a value that is above all of us. Therefore, we have a huge task in the country that is in the name of democracy, defending expression, defending the freedoms of those 45 million Brazilians who have accompanied us here. We have a responsibility to make an opposition, putting national interests, the interests of all Brazilian people, above all, because we have a commitment to the prosperity of the country. We who helped to build one of the largest democracies in the world, in Brazil, we have to have an obligation and will keep it.
Meanwhile, supporters of the Workers' Party have expressed their disappointment by the election result. They called the win a difficult time for Brazilian democracy. Sadness expressed among Haddad supporters after the defeat. They cried and hugged each other as the results came out. They fear what the upcoming administration may bring to the country, especially for minorities.
This is a difficult time for Brazilian democracy because it's becoming every time more fragile. We have to fight so all the nonsense the other candidates spoke about doesn't come true. We must not allow the nonsense to materialize.
I believe this was a really unfair contest because it was activism against robots, truth against fake news, love against hate, and this is so sad. I am a person that believes in democracy, in the population's well-being, and people here are losing a lot.
Riot police was deployed to contain protests after the far-right candidate won the election. People took to the streets of Rio de Janeiro, and riot police fired tear gas on protesters in São Paulo. Protesters yelled "LD Now," a known slogan against Bolsonaro. Many Brazilians are concerned that Bolsonaro will not respect human rights, civil liberties, and freedom of speech. Some remember the government of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and its focus on social issues.
I am in mourning, not for me, but for Brazil, which doesn't deserve this. It doesn't deserve this ignorance. The Brazilian people are ignorant. Brazil owes a lot to Lula.
Tensions between followers and critics of Jair Bolsonaro took place after the election. Heavy confrontations were registered in Rio de Janeiro after far-right candidate was elected president of Brazil. Police authorities tried to ease the clashes between supporters and critics of Bolsonaro. And some states also went to a second round of voting in order to elect a governor. There will be just one woman holding the office of state governor in all Brazil, as Fátima Becerra from the Workers' Party was being elected. Becerra will be governor of Rio Grande do Norte after having been elected today with nearly 60% of the votes. Now let's take a look at the social liberal president-elect Jair Bolsonaro.
Year-old former captain in the army who defends the military dictatorship and considers torture legitimate. He has become notorious for his sexist and homophobic remarks, and he has presented himself as a messiah to save the Brazilian people. Bolsonaro has served 7 terms as a member of the lower house of the Brazilian Congress. His political platform includes a strong security agenda. It includes lowering the age of criminal responsibility to 16 and spending more on the police and intelligence services. He's also in favor of privatizing public companies.
Little has been said about the economic policies that Bolsonaro plans to put into effect during his term. Let's take a look at his proposals.
The far-right candidate said he will consider privatizing state-owned companies to fight the fiscal deficit. Although he hasn't detailed what companies will face privatization, experts are pointing to the oil company Petrobras and the Banco do Brasil. The country has more than 100 state companies, of which 18 depend on government funding. His government plans also include a radical fiscal reform that aims at reducing taxes for businesses. Despite this, Bolsonaro has vowed to cut taxes and has rejected taxes on financial transactions. Regarding the pension system, Bolsonaro has said a reform is necessary, but it needs to be changed gradually from how it works today. He has promised to create a new fund where workers can save their pensions and manage their own resources. If he wins, he could also reform government social programs and subsidies. Bolsonaro is expected to follow a free market economic policy. Although China is one of the country's biggest commercial partners, the far-right candidate wants to get closer to the United States, making this the most important commercial tie for Brazil. He has criticized protectionism and subsidies to local industries. Finally, his government plan contemplates an independent central bank as a way to limit political interference. But he has said that he wants to maintain the same board or one with similar views. Bolsonaro has already announced that economist and investor Paulo Guedes will be his pick for economy minister to lead the country's reforms.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. One Honduran migrant has been killed near the Guatemala-Mexico border on his way to the U.S. 26-year-old Henry Diaz was hit in the head by a rubber bullet dispersed by Mexican security forces against the migrant caravan. Several others were injured. Diaz was killed in the Guatemalan bordering city of Tecumán.
He was shot with a rubber bullet, which can actually cause such a wound. We can't confirm the time he died, but we can confirm it was this wound that caused his death.
Over 1,000 people have marched in a silent caravan migrant towards the border of Guatemala and Mexico. The march took place in the municipality of Tecún, the last stop before crossing to the Mexican side. People participating have faced security forces as they arrived to the border. The Central American migrant caravan, making its way through Mexico towards the U.S. border, continues to advance. The main group of the caravan has reached the state of Oaxaca and are reportedly attempting to organize better. They have formed a security committee to maintain order and collect rubbish.
We had a session with all of the migrants, and a security committee of 300 people was formed for caravan security along the road, to use only one lane, to go orderly, and to be here caring for everyone. The committee will be in charge of the trash and all other issues.
Meanwhile, the Mexican president has announced that the government will offer migrants medical care, education for their children, and access to temporary work as long as they stay in 2 southern states.
To support you, the government of Mexico is launching the plan, You're in Your Home. While in Mexico, you can receive medical attention and even send your children to school. You will also have a temporary official identification to do the procedures that you need while you regularize your immigration status.
However, the migrants have rejected the proposals. They believe that the majority of those who will apply will be rejected and deported.
This is definitely a strong mandate. We all know that. It's more of the same. which is repressing, containing migration. There's no solution there.
There will now be weekly non-stop flights from Russia to Jamaica. The measure came as Russian tourists no longer need entry visas to stay in Jamaica for up to 90 days. The first flight by Russian airline Norwinds was welcomed on Friday with 300 tourists aboard. $1 billion worth of new investment is to be pumped into Barbados' economy through financing of various projects. These include the Sandals Beaches Hotel, Psychicors Medical Complex, and new accommodation for students of Ross University. Earlier this month, Barbados agreed to host students who were displaced by Hurricane Maria's destruction of Dominica last year. Work is scheduled to start in January. Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley has delivered the keynote address to the annual conference of Barbados Labour Party. Speaking at the Lodge School on the second day of the 80th conference, she presented her 5-month report card. Mottley called on supporters to stay focused and say the party was given a mandate like no other in the history of the country. The Labour Party took office last May 24th, winning all 30 seats in Parliament.
But I'm enjoying getting
Doctors from Venezuela and Cuba have arrived in Suriname as part of the Petro-Caribbean's Regional Integration Agreement. They will provide aid to low-income patients suffering from eye diseases. The Office of Petro-Caribe said via Twitter the Venezuela Medical Mission plans to perform approximately 27 surgeries to patients with various diseases within the framework of the Petro-Caribe Cooperation Agreement. More than 2 million people have attended the Day of the Day parade in Mexico. Allegorical floats, giant puppets, skull face paint, and main characters from Mexican culture line up in the Paseo de la Reforma in Mexico City. Celebrated for a third time in a row, this year's theme focused on migration with features African and Spanish migrants. The Mexican Day of the Dead celebrations are known widely famous for their colorful traditions. 13 muralists are taking part in the urban art festival La Puerta del Sur in Chile.
The urban festival La Puerta del Sur is taking over abandoned public spaces. This festival aims at bringing art out of museum halls and into the streets in a bid for the creation of interesting content and social criticism.
The idea began with a conversation among several painters. We were painting all over the world and for different festivals. The idea with this festival is not only to paint, but to go beyond the paint and create something like what we are creating now. We are changing the visual landscape with the help of several artists that are sharing their art with the city.
13 muralists painted more than 1,300 meters of walls and stones of the Mapocho River in capital Santiago, a space full of symbolism and history.
This river is a scar. It is a backbone in the city. But it is also a border of Santiago between the poor and the rich. This river has a lot of violence. Bodies were found here during the militia coup.
My parents left for exile. The stories of the military coup, popular unity, and this river are part of my life and my childhood.
The secret police of dictator Augusto Pinochet tortured and murdered people in the riverside, a painful practice that has continued.
Do you remember the case of the Colombian who got killed and was thrown here? Well, this river has accumulated all that is bad with this city. What we're doing here is just returning a little bit of love to the river through street art.
The Venezuelan-Chilean muralist Galala has come back to return part of that love.
The mural that I came here to do represents a meeting between Venezuelan dancing demons and Chilean dancing demons. This is my way of explaining the encounter of my roots, of my history, my childhood, and all those stories that I have heard all of my life.
But he's not the only one. Peruvian muralist Olfer shows his own story as well.
The river has a mystique because they found an Inca mummy here, where the river begins. Above that, the Incas settled here because they reached these parts.
Everyone has united for this Latin American encounter. The Chilean poet Raúl Zurita reflects through his verses that will be engraved on the murals.
When everything is finished, these stones will remain. They will survive the waves, the centuries, and the dreams, just how the powerful and the stubborn hearts will last.
Stubborn like these artists that on the stones of the river they found a place to paint their best weapon.
We'll take a short break now. More news in a minute.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur.
We are always there tracking the news. We seek equality. We defend the truth. It's a hard job, but we are not alone. We count on a new ally.
Welcome back. A Lion Air passenger jet carrying 189 people has crashed into the sea shortly after taking off. The plane was on its way to Indonesia's capital from Jakarta when it lost contact with air-controlled traffic. Rescuers are retrieving the remains of the victims as families wait for news on the loved ones. Rescuers are also trying to recover the main body of the plane. The Philippines has issued storm warnings ahead of the destructive Typhoon Yutu. Tropical cyclone warnings levels have been raised for 9 provinces. A mountainous region is also on a high alert for possible landslides. Typhoon Yutu lashed the U.S. Northern Mariana Islands last week. It is set to make landfall on Tuesday morning. Lawyers for survivors of Rwanda's genocide have urged France to reopen its investigation into claims that French troops were responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people they had promised to rescue. 6 survivors launched a legal case in 2005 accusing French soldiers of abandoning Tutsi civilians in western Rwanda during the genocide. The government of Rwanda has in the past accused the French government of having supported the genocidal Hutu military forces. Residents of rural Kenya are reaping the benefits of universal basic income. The program is part of a large study to discover a new way to end poverty. Around 20,000 people are participating in this program, receiving between 22 and 500 euros per month. According to the World Bank, over a third of Kenya's nearly 50 million citizens live below the international poverty line.
When you give people cash, the first thing you give them is choice. Pretty much, we are telling you, like, here are the resources. Make the decision on how you want to use it. So you're giving people a choice, which traditional aid doesn't do.
Thousands of Moradin pilgrims have attended to Grand Magal on Senegal's holy city of Touba. This is one of the most popular pilgrimages in the world. The Moradin Brotherhood is a Sufi order with a mass following in the country. Worshippers celebrate the life and teaching of the Brotherhood's founder, Chamish Amoud Bamba, reading his poems and praying.
The Magal is a religious meeting and at the same time an act of devotion as well. It also allows us to come and visit Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba's tomb. It is an important religious event for the entire Morai community.
People in Morocco have celebrated the self-festival of Bouj Loud, also known as the Moroccan Halloween. Dressed in costumes, sheepskins and spooky masks, people dance with traditional moves through the city's streets of Sale. The annual Bouj Loud festival is a local ritual where color and art diversity are aimed at bringing joy to the citizens. Germany's ruling party and its coalition allies have lost support in a regional election. For the first time, the far-right Alternative for Germany gained a foothold with 12% of the vote. Chancellor Angela Merkel's Christian Democrats gained 28% of the vote. Although the party came first, it slumped in the polls as they had previously won by just over 38% in 2013. The Pope has called for the eradication of hate after the Pittsburgh shooting. Here's more on that and some other stories from around the world.
Pope Francis has denounced the attack on a Pittsburgh synagogue in which 11 people were killed. The attack happened when a shooter burst into the Tree of Life synagogue and fired at the worshippers. The Pope spoke to pilgrims in St. Peter's Square after Mass and called for eliminating hotbeds of hate.
Dear brothers and sisters, I express my closeness to the city of Pittsburgh in the United States of America, and in particular to the Jewish community stricken yesterday by a terrible attack on the synagogue. May God welcome the dead in His peace, comfort their families and support the wounded. All of us in reality are wounded by this inhumane act of violence. May the Lord help us to put out the hotbeds of hate that flare up in our societies, strengthening a sense of humanity, respect for life, moral and civil values, and the holy fear of God, who is love and Father of all.
Leicester City fans have paid tribute to the owner of the football club who was killed in a helicopter crash in the United Kingdom. Vijay Shivardhana Prabha was among 5 people aboard the helicopter when it crashed into flames after a Premier League match on Saturday. He was popular with supporters after buying the poor-performing club in 2010. It then went on to win the Premier League title in 2016. Fans laid shirts and flowers outside the stadium in tribute to him.
Indescribable really. He's put so much money into the club. He's brought the club up from receivership, put the money in, built the team, won the Premiership. And the future's looking bright, or obviously it was looking bright. And he's done everything he can,
A demonstration took place outside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey, against the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. It was attended by Arab, foreign and Turkish journalists and activists. Also present was a man dressed as Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, wearing a mask of his face with bloody hands, directly implicating him in the murder. The Saudis have admitted to the killing but say they are unaware of where Khashoggi's body is.
We come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories you can find on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.